Incoming transmission.
Hi, everybody. It's Ed, and it's time for another Boosting the Signal. And this week I have a guest. His name is Christopher Davidson. Uh, Christopher, how are you doing?
Uh, I'd be fine if it wasn't for the heat. I'm pretty good.
Yes, yeah.
How are you?
I'm well, and I understand the heat completely. Now I want to kind of jump into something right off the bat because we were talking before we started recording, and you were talking about people yell out your name Chris, and it's nobody needs to know what we were talking about, but it's funny anyways. It made me think about a friend of mine, and an acquaintance. His name is Chris as well, and he
Hmm?
once made a statement that there should be a convention called ChrisCon, where they
Oh,
just invite people named Chris, and well, his name is Chris, so he was all for it. But like you could have, Chris Evans, you could have, what's his name that played in Star Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah. Hemsworth? No.
No, well, he could be there too.
Yeah, well, that Chris. Yeah,
Yeah,
Chris.
but the other Chris. Well, there's so
Chris.
many other Chris. Yeah, Pratt. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's forgettable. So, anyways, it's um, yeah, it was always a funny thing. So anytime I meet someone named Chris, the first thing that pops in my mind is Chris Con, and like I've seen graphics made up of it and everything else. So if it ever does happen, I'll make sure I let you know. Uh,
Okay, but I gotta wonder, how would something like that work? Like, how would you get anybody's attention?
wait, yeah, it's good, Chris.
Hey, Chris, what? The whole room turns.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I no, I'm really glad to have you on here and you reached out and you were interested in doing the podcast. I am curious how you stumbled across me. I was going through a phase here lately where more people were discovering the podcast and the page, and I'm genuinely curious.
Well, just through, I guess, the internet grapevine, just Instagram grapevine, as it were. There's just a few other people I know that are Trek means a lot to them, and I'd seen that there's discussions with you on your here, and I thought, well, that's pretty interesting, and it ties in. I think I've been Star Trek has always meant uh, a great deal to me ever since I started getting into it, and just as I've gotten older, I've found I'm trying to, I guess, come to an understanding and better understanding of myself through where I come from, and uh, connecting with people through Star Trek and just the meanings behind it. I found a lot of personal connection to my own family history through it. Um, and I feel that it's just in the last few years, I've actually been working on a writing project of my own that I started during the pandemic lockdown that is Star Trek related. And so it's always kind of been nattering at the back of my mind. And so the more I think about it, the more I just spot Trek related things out in the world and gravitate towards them. So it's people, it's discussions, it's sites like this, it's accounts, and it's brought me closer. I find Trek is the one thing that has kind of pushed me into the career areas that I've been in and am in currently. Um, and it's seems to be I guess the central unimatrix from which so much of who I am and what's important to me branches out from.
Well, I like that. I really do, and I relate to it on a deep level. I really do. I growing up, I've always been a Star Trek fan, and the one thing that was always lacking in my world was someone to talk Star Trek with. And
Mhm.
tangentially, I would have friends here and there that say, I watched that Star Trek thing. Yeah, I've seen it, and I like Spock. But it was never like deep rooted conversations. And I think social media can be used for a wonderful tool as a wonderful tool in such regards if you can find your people. And
Mhm.
that has been my goal with this, is to find my people, to boost their signal and have great conversations. And um, I don't get me wrong, I'm like everybody else. I would love to talk to all the big stars and everything else, but
Mhm.
sometimes I find that the everyday person has a story that needs to be told. And
Mhm.
I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you. Me too. I think you're right. Yeah. Um, yeah, the people involved in Star Trek and the big stars and the actors will always, yeah, they're always a source that you want to go to and talk to. But I find um, it's the fans that understand it on a much deeper level. It means more to them. I'm sure for the actors, they understand what it means to people, but I do sometimes question whether or not they fully grasp it. Um, like I think the smart ones do come to realize how significant it is and why. But I think, yeah, also looking at it from a professional perspective, there's a part of them that just probably says, "Oh God, not now." Um,
Yeah,
it's like somebody like William Shatner, I'm sure wants to talk about Star Trek when it's time to talk about Star Trek,
yeah,
because I know people that work with him through other industries with because he's just so busy and he's got his fingers in so many pies that they've been in board meetings that he's a part of because of uh, something he's the chair of or just an organization he's part of. And every time someone tries to bring up Star Trek or ask him a Trek question in a meeting, it usually gets shut down.
mm,
And it just it that says a lot that obviously people are very passionate about it, but there's a
yeah,
difference in the level of understanding and meaning for people.
yeah. I can see that. I mean, it's to steal a line from How I Met Your Mother, a show where a character once told another character, "The only people that have never seen Star Wars are the people that were in the Star Wars because they lived the Star Wars." And that quote, I've always kind of used it when it comes to Star Trek. I've wondered, like you said, do the actors have a deep understanding of what things mean to fans? Myself, I find myself sometimes emotionally attached to fictional characters and their situations that I maybe I shouldn't. I mean, I understand that they are fictional characters. I'm not delusional or anything like that, but their stories sometimes can resonate with an individual and touch them so much that it's something that can change their outlook on life. And
Right.
I hope that some of them understand that.
Well, yeah, and I get what you're getting. I'm gonna put it into contextualize is for
Okay.
me is I do a lot of writing and I'm a scenic artist. I trained in um theater tech, so I do a lot of scenic design, scenic work. And it's the same kind of thing. Like anytime I've written something of substance or done a set design of substance, it's like any kind of art. You may intend it as one thing, but there's countless numbers of viewers out there who are going to interpret it in their own way that either um, says exactly what you're trying to say,
Yeah.
but quite often in more distinct, distilled, clear words, or you're getting something they come to it with ideas that you didn't even consider. And sometimes you just kind of go, "Oh, I guess I did do that and didn't realize that's what I was creating." Um, so it makes sense to me that, as you say from that line, is kind of a can't see the forest for the trees type of situation.
Yeah.
You don't really know what you've done or the impact it's had on people until you start seeing the returns.
And you're right. And sometimes I've heard stories where, like, let's say there's a moment in a performance that has resonated with me, and I will read into that. I will look into it. Like I want to know what was the behind the scenes. only to find out maybe something tragic was happening with that
Mhm,
actor, and their
mhm.
emotions were showing through at that time, and it made for a wonderful performance. But it's terrible to find out what they were going through.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And when you're an actor in that moment trying to play that part, you're just focused on your job of making that character as real as possible. You're not even considering the effect it's going to have on the audience, how
yeah.
they're going to relate to it, how they're like. I played Radar in a stage version of MASH once, and the scene where Hojon is injured and brought into the ER. Um, I decided Radar needs to get a bit emotional here. So as he was being led off stage by Father Malkeki, I gave him some tears, and the the assistant director came up to me backstage and said, "You son of a bitch, you just made me cry." Ugh. It's just the thing that you're focused on your job and you're not aware of the ramifications it's going to have, and that's just
Yeah.
a character of any good art, really.
I do like MASH.
Thanks, me too.
I just recently, about a month ago, I watched the documentary. I found it on Hulu, or yeah, YouTube. It's on YouTube, and it was really good. So many actors that I was glad participated in it when they had the chance, because they're gone now.
Yeah, a lot
But
of them.
yeah, if anybody's a MASH fan, check it out. It's on YouTube. It's free. Yeah, I was when I was looking into your profile on Instagram, I saw that you had it listed environmental and scenic designer, and my first inclination was I don't know what that means, but I'm glad you've elaborated and I understand now.
Well, I
Uh,
could elaborate a bit more. Like, what's your? Did I?
well, no, I when I see like when I read environmental and scenic designer, I thought like you designed parks. I was thinking like you were a park designer. I'm like, well, that's scenic and that's environmental, But so I
But
wasn't thinking stage.
I this kind of design work. I'm surprised there is a lot of crossover between multiple disciplines. I have in fact designed a park. It
Hmm.
just didn't go anywhere. um, but it's the same thing with like scenic design for theater, for film, for concerts. Uh, there's variations on it, but there's a lot of just tendrils that cross constantly into each other.
Hmm.
Um, like I've designed museums. It's just about creating the environment that produces the right feel and the right emotional reaction. So sometimes it's doing an entire set design, or sometimes it's like someone's already got something designed. Like last year, I did a an escape room.
Oh,
Um, my job was to design the main lobby, and I found that the guy that hired me had a really clear idea of what he wanted.
yeah.
And I'm usually used to working with clients that have no idea and they just leave it completely up to me.
Hmm.
Whereas in this case, he knew what he wanted, so my job was more to take what he had and just heighten it and enhance it, just make it bigger and better. It just and that's a good deal of what I do. Is I am quite often the translation matrix for someone that has a vision, but for whatever reason does not have the ability to follow through. They lack the skill or the experience or the patience, and that's where I come in. And I'm glad you mentioned this because it's really one of the things that kind of like Trek is really one of the things that sort of got me into it because I realized early on, like I very early developed an appreciation for Matt Jeffries' work because I just like the brilliance and simplicity of what he did in how, and it's very theatrical.
Yeah.
It's very similar to how things are done in theater in that sets are usually multi-purpose. You get as many locations out of one set piece as you can. That's the challenge I enjoy the most is the director will come to me with a laundry list of, hey, I need to have this many locations, but I've only got this much money for a set. What can you do? So you end up making some unit piece that symbolically and is more ethereal than it is practical and has everything the director needs in it. And I always still take a lot of inspiration from Trek because you've got a modular design of a ship, which makes sense because a fleet of them, they would just build these things as like come off an assembly line. They'd be in modular pieces, and you just
Well,
um,
you're
move
not
around.
far off. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're dead on. I mean, have you seen the blueprints for the 1701 where
Yeah.
the bridge was made to be removed and dropped in, new ones dropped in?
Yes, yes. And that also ties back to Matt Jeffrey's experience in the Air Force during the war. And that, like I said earlier, Trek has helped me kind of come to terms and get closer to family is because my grandfather died, I think about 2 to 3 weeks before my second birthday. So I have virtually no memory of him. The only thing I have is a memory of a memory. Like I remember there was a time when I used to be able to look at, there's this one family portrait, like portrait of him that everyone in the family has a copy of. And there used to be a time in my life where I used to be able to look at that picture and go, "Oh yeah, that's the guy that used to come over to the house all the time." But now that's faded. All I have is that memory of that memory. And he died. He's only 61,
Mm.
and that was as a result of a lifelong smoking habit and drinking that really picked up after the war. Because he enlisted in the Air Force. I think he was 21 or 22 during the Second World War, and that's when he found out he was colorblind when he went for his physical.
Oh,
So he was not allowed to actively serve on missions. So instead, he was assigned as, I guess, support crew, ground crew. He was fixing the engines, like the Lancaster bombers, like not so much fixing, so much as like, oh, there's a hole through the engine, fine, pull that engine out and drop a new one in and send it back into the air.
huh.
Like it wasn't mechanic in the sense that we're going to repair things so much as just swap out pieces. But my father and both my brothers have since, I think, as a kind of as a way of honoring my grandfather, certainly was the case for my dad, and there was that trickle down effect. They uh, joined the local cadet units, which basically train cadets to, you're essentially keeping the pilot light on for the local defense should something happen.
Okay.
Um, and I think that was kind of their dad's way of honoring grandpa and continuing on. Um, and I'm quite certain grandpa basically smoked himself to death with survivor's remorse because he would, the survival rate in the Air Force, the Canadian Air Force during the war was 1 in 10.
Mm.
So if he was sending out, seeing 100 of his buddies going off to war in the morning, 10 of them were coming back at night. So
That's
like
unimaginable.
yeah, there were like that's a lot of guilt and a lot of like survivor's remorse straight up. Um, and I through watching Trek, I started to realize like, okay, there's this sense of camaraderie here. And then in reading into it more and finding out about how it was produced, I realized that what Trek truly is at its core, Roddenberry was also in the Air Force. He flew in the very types of bombers that my grandfather fixed.
Hmm.
Um, so somebody like Roddenberry would be out on missions, bombing innocent people that he didn't know out of existence, with his men and his unit being shot or killed in these planes that were not much more than a flying engine and a couple of seats. My grandfather was down on the ground, helping somebody get into the belly turret and like, hey, thanks, Lloyd. We'll tie one on when I get back. Oh, sure, I'll help you get out of the plane when you get back too. Well, he did help him get out of the plane with a hose and a squeegee. So the more I looked into Trek, I eventually realized, okay, this is uh, there's a large pattern I've noticed in the types of books that were written after the war. And I remember having this conversation with my grandmother once. Um, she was a war bride, so to her dying day, she insisted Grandpa was not an alcoholic. Um, because she knew that her duty was, as a war bride, you defend your husbands, because they went through horrible things that they cannot talk about. So let them go down to the Legion, let them do what they need to do to work through it. And people would complain and say, oh, they're just going down there to get drunk. And she would say, no, they're going down there to drink to forget. Don't judge them. Let them do what they need to do. And so that is a generation, that is an entire generation, the greatest generation, as they're called, that can't speak about what happened. Very few of them did. My dad would tell me about talking to veterans when they got home from the war. He'd go visit them in VA hospitals, and some of them could never go outside again because anytime they heard a car backfire, it would trigger them.
Yeah.
Um, and I realized after, like, at one point, I don't even know when, I just realized that people like Gene Roddenberry, Ian Fleming, and any of the other famous big C creators that came out of that generation, they couldn't talk about their experiences. And so they created about it.
Yeah.
Fleming worked for the British Secret Service, MI5 during the war. He helped plan a lot of uh, the most secret missions and operations they had during the war. He helped plan D-Day. His home in Jamaica, Goldeneye, was actually the code name of one of the missions he worked on. Um, so these guys, like, their way of dealing with what they had gone through was to create. Fleming basically was a he Fleming essentially is a cross between Moneypenny M and Bond himself. He is he sent so many people off to die and was racked with so much guilt that he created a character that keeps coming back, that always makes it home. Roddenberry was dropping bombs on innocent people that he'd never met. And so he later conceived of this idea, hey, what if we take all this technology that we're using to currently kill each other, and instead of killing each other with it, we use it to improve ourselves?
Yeah.
And Trek was born out of that. And then because of my family's connections to the Air Force, I've seen a lot of old photographs of training of cadets and what they go through. And as soon as I saw like these old photo albums, I went, holy shit, this is Star Trek. Like what you learn in cadets and what you learn in the Air Force is what they were taught. So anytime you look at the original Matt Jeffries Enterprise, all those consoles and everything, especially the big one in engineering, that
Yeah.
is just straight from the Air Force. So, and then you've got all the Navy tie-ins too. Like we've got a friend who's a doctor in the Canadian Navy, and it's like, yeah, just colored tunic with your unit division color on it and black pants. Nothing's changed. Like that's what we're seeing on television. So to me, Trek is the greatest generation saying, look, we did our part to make this a better world. It's your responsibility to try to keep us there and move us even further. Trek, in my mind, is what Roddenberry said. This is what we were fighting for. This is the goal. This is what we should be heading towards. Here's what we've done. It's up to you now.
I think the most disturbing part of any of that and thinking about it is thinking about the the terrible things that happen in Star Trek's past, which would be technically our future, that are coming to fruition. Um,
Right. And that's exactly what they were writing about. They said,
yeah,
we're we see this pattern, we're heading straight towards it again. Um, and I'm sure you're probably aware Roddenberry was quite uh, well, dead against organized religion. But
yeah,
my impression is that he's always been kind of a spiritual person, like uh, more into philosophy, Eastern philosophy, things like that. Um, so I think he recognized like there's a concept in Reiki of energy. It's kind of a helixly wrapping spiral going up.
right.
Now, if you look at, I eventually kind of, I don't know if this is correct or not. Just I have one of those brains that seems to make a lot of connections, um, and notices patterns or just creates them. Uh, when you look at, there's the saying of human development is one step forward, two steps back. Well, it's not like that. If you look at it three dimensionally, one step forward, like it's kind of like our human development kind of goes at a gradient like this, and then we drop off and come back, and then we go up and drop off and come back over and over. Am I making sense?
No, no, I get it.
Yeah.
You're no,
Okay.
it's a what's the word? Reciprocal nature of everything. Everything comes back around, and then
Yeah.
it changes enough to where it doesn't look exactly the same. So I
Right.
understand.
So yeah, we kind of like human progress kind of goes like this. Like we start off at a point, like let's say for example, the end of the Second World War. We start improving, 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 reach a pinnacle, come back around, and then by the time we get towards almost close the circle, we go, oh, we've had this conversation before, and then we move again. So human like development is not a constantly moving line going up and out. It's a spiral, just kind of. So we do incrementally move up, but in circles at the same time.
And I can understand. I'm not well versed in Gene Roddenberry being spiritual or anything else. Actually,
Well, I think the Coke probably had a lot to do with it too.
I myself I have no religious background. I'm not religious or spiritual in any way, but I do find myself thinking like very along the lines of karma, like if I
Hmm.
do good things, not to quote My Name is Earl, as long as I do good things happen,
Yeah.
and I try my best to live that way. I don't show any negativity or hatred towards. I I may despise groups of people because of their hatred, but at the same time, I've tried my best to be embracing upon as many of them as I can. Unfortunately, it has backfired on me multiple times.
Well,
Uh,
you know what? I got to give you credit for trying because it sounds like, in spite of some severe disagreements, you're recognizing that there's still a person in there, and it's the opinions and the views you have a problem with, not the person.
I had a conversation with someone. This is on topic slash off topic. Last Saturday, I was leaving my home, and I live in an apartment complex, and there was an individual that lives in our complex that was breaking rules. We've been asked not to have open fire grills. Simple thing. Don't have them. Everyone signed agreements. No problem. Everybody got rid of their grills, stuff like that.
Mhm.
There's a gentleman that's in another building for his birthday in February. Had received a brand new smoker and really nice piece of equipment. And he had to get rid of it. So this other gentleman was breaking the rules and using it, and I expressed to the office manager about it, and this gentleman did not like the fact that I ratted him out, so he got in my face. And I told him flat out, I said, I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this because I am standing up for the people that can't stand up, the people that aren't going to stand up, for the people that are going to just let it brush by and say, well, it's not my problem. I'm not that type
Mhm.
of person. I am the type of person, if I see an injustice, I'm going to stand up for it. And usually I end up with a fist in the mouth. But it's the way I raised my son. Um, it's the way I was raised. I don't want the world to be bad for my children. Um, if my son and his husband decide to ever adopt and have a child and in any way, shape, or form, I want their children to have a better world.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what we got to do, and that's what I look at Star Trek as. Star Trek has taught me that, and that's my spirituality.
Mhm. And I think the same is true of a lot of people because there is so much spirituality infused into Star Trek. But for me, the core of Trek is I find that it's really it's a story about faith in a way, not faith in any kind of deity or higher power, but faith in ourselves. It's It's like I said, it's that greatest generation saying we have done the best we can by creating this world that they created for us that had good, high paying jobs protected by unions, uh, healthcare here in Canada. I don't know what you guys have.
Crap.
Um, okay. Uh,
They nothing is good, and no. Yeah, Canada's way better.
all right. Well, thank you.
Mm.
I was trying to not say it out loud. And so I think it's really it's them saying, look, we have died and sacrificed for the belief that humanity is worth preserving and saving and continuing.
Yeah.
Like, and if you notice in Trek, that's the one recurring theme in everything. Whenever they're in a very difficult situation, there doesn't seem to be, no one seems to have a problem being willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for everybody else, whether it's Spock, Kirk, the entire crew. Like anytime a captain, well, I'll use Voyager for example. How many times did Janeway realize, oh, I need to sacrifice the entire ship in order to save somebody else?
Yeah.
And then through some causality or time loop or just bad writing, they get out of it. Um, but every time that happens, there is no moment where someone says, "Oh fuck, no, I don't want to be that guy." Like everybody is willing to make that sacrifice. And I think that's
Well,
because the idea is we've moved on as a species. We've progressed to the point where we recognize the value of human life so much that we are all willing to make that sacrifice if it means everybody else gets to go, everybody else gets to survive. And that is what the greatest generation did for us is they sacrificed everything they had and were willing to in order to create something better with the faith that humanity deserves it. And we're going to keep going because we hopefully learned our lessons from these past two wars. But it's also built in that, as you mentioned, Trek talks about the horrible past that humanity had to go through.
yeah.
It's kind of saying, it's almost like they were saying, well, humanity's going to get there, but we're going to twist our ankles in a couple more dozen potholes before we finally figure it out.
Yeah. The there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on. You said I thought about the needs of the many and
Mm-hmm.
how they outweigh the needs of the few. I thought about Janeway and how many times 7 of 9 would come to her and say, we don't do this, and she would still go about saving people, and like you said, sacrificing. And I also thought about, are you a fan of Firefly? And because there was something you said that made me think of Firefly, and Shepard Book once said, "When I speak of faith, why do you think I'm talking about God?" And it's, I have faith in you and I have faith in the situation. It's not about God or some religion. And
Right.
I've always thought about that. Actually, I, I recently bought a Shepherd Book Funko Pop, and specifically because I was thinking about that. And I was like, I try not to buy those things, but I had to have a Shepherd Book. So,
Well, and well, to answer your first question, yes, I've seen Firefly. I think had it continued beyond what was it, 14 episodes,
yeah.
um, a bigger fan. But I honestly haven't watched it in years. Um, so I don't remember the quote you're mentioning, but it's interesting that you mentioned that because ties in with a thought I've been having recently myself. And what did you say it was again? What's the quote?
Um, when I speak of faith, why do you think I'm talking about God? And it's actually from the Serenity movie, when
Okay, right,
that so
right. And I was thinking, yeah, when I speak of faith, why do you think I'm talking about God? I actually was having similar thoughts in the shower yesterday, actually, um, about when people like there's the term insurance companies use it like act of God.
yeah,
So basically, when there's no one to blame or there's no answer, we leave that to God. Um, so in my mind, in a way, God is the catch-all for things we simply cannot are beyond our control. Like human beings, we need to be in control. We need to feel in control
Yeah.
because that provides safety. And I think God, in that sense, is we just don't we have a very hard time accepting the things that we cannot change, the things that are beyond our control.
Yeah.
And so I think we have God for that reason to say the things that we can't control, those have got to be the jurisdiction of a higher power because human beings just need an answer. We need an answer when we need control. And when we don't do that, we convince ourselves that this is how it is because it just
No,
makes it easier to sleep at night.
I
So
get
when
that.
so thank you. And so when someone says to me like the phrase may God help you, I look at that as that is supposed to mean that humanity has done like say you have a problem like you're sick, you've got cancer, who knows. It's supposed to mean when someone says may God help you implies that you and everyone around you and all of society has done their absolute level best, everything they could possibly do to try and resolve the situation. And when they realize that they can't, they realize, okay, we've done everything we can. We now need to put this in the purview of a higher power. It's a way of by saying, may God help you is a way of saying, declaring, we will do everything we can in our power first.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't say, may God help you until you have done that. So when someone says, wishes that God help someone, it's really them saying, I hope your community, the world around you, does everything they possibly can to help you because you deserve that. And you deserve more than that. You deserve this faith that we all need.
Yeah.
So,
No, I get that, and not to interrupt. I apologize for stepping on you. I was
no
just
problem.
I know it's a blanket terminology to help people, and it's the shiny happy thing that people need, to hold on to, and I get that. I lack that, unfortunately. I do. It's not something I'm
No, you
not.
don't.
Well, no, I guess I do. I mean, I
No,
don't
you don't.
believe
Well,
that.
here. Look,
Okay.
like I said, it gives us something to strive for. It gives us something like human beings need example. We need like an example of someone who like look around on Instagram. How many people will respond on somebody's channel like, "Oh, you're inspiring me. You're such a good job. You're an inspiration to us all." People like inspiration. They like a model to strive towards. Be like this person, be like that person. They don't like being told what to do. Like, "Oh, you have problems? Here, let me tell you how to fix it." Fuck off. No. "Oh, here's a guy who figured out his problems. Why don't I just take inspiration from him and fix all my own problems?" We're independent. We don't like being told what to do. But when we screw up, we also don't like taking blame. And I think that's honestly the next level up for humanity is when we finally learn how to own our shit.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's when the Trek universe will actually start. But here's you guys don't have monarchy in the States, right?
Don't have what? A
Monarchy?
monarchy?
Yeah.
We like to say no, but I think somebody thinks he is. Um,
Well, then you got the Kennedys in there, so just
well, see,
um,
that whole thing. I think that was people ideology, like someone idolizing a family. Like of course, I'm not old enough to have
where do you think that
experienced
starts?
religion. I guess I don't know.
No, where do you think monarchy starts?
Well, the UK. I really don't really know.
No. Just if like theoretically,
Okay.
you and I woke up tomorrow on an island in the middle of the Atlantic. Let's say there's 8,000 people.
All right.
They're all split up into different little areas, forming their own little communities. What do you think's going to happen?
The strongest will probably be the leaders,
Right.
and
How does that happen?
uh, other people are followers. They
Okay.
look for
Why do they lead those people? Why do they follow these leaders?
lack of they lack something. Lack
That's
of
part of it.
you know they need. I don't know. You really got me stumped here. I know. Help me understand.
Well, it's perfectly nat like first of all, monarchy is the most basic raw form of government that we have on this planet.
Right.
It just happens naturally. When I was in high school, one of the teachers started a rugby team at our school. We didn't have one before. It was just football before that. And he started this. So a bunch of us came out for the first few practices. And one guy was really enthusiastic. He seemed to already know all the rules of the game backwards. So while we were having our first practice, he was always the one going, "Okay, guys, you're just sort of naturally showing us what to do." And so at the end of the practice, somebody said, "Okay, we need to pick a team captain." Everybody automatically just pointed at that guy and said, "Him."
Oh,
Because human beings don't like to have to think too much, the majority of us. So if they see somebody who's like, "Oh, you've already taken care of that? Cool." So say you have an island where it's now split up into three groups. And as you said, the strongest becomes the leader. One group has all the forests, another group has all the mining, another group has the farmland. The biggest group is the mining one because he needs the most people to go into the mine and work. It also means he can produce weapons.
uh,
So then you've got the guys with all the wood and the guys with all the farmland. They're fighting each other over territory. This is disrupting the flow for everybody because everybody needs the food and the miners need the wood to work the forges. So there's a they all need to lean on each other. So rather than let the fighting continue, the guy with the biggest amount of property, who can also forge weapons, is going to gather everybody together in a meeting and say, "Okay, we need you to stop dicking around. So here's what's going to happen. I have the biggest amount of land, which means I can raise the biggest army. I can also produce weapons. So you guys are going to stop fucking around and do what I tell you to do." Okay, that's a good idea, but here's the thing. We don't want you to have too much power. Okay, so how are we going to make this work? We're going to develop this thing called government, where the two sides get together, argue the points, and then decide what to do. Well, who's going to be the final decider? How about the guy with the biggest amount of land? Because if we say no to him, he's going to come kill us anyways. Oh, okay. But we need him to be impartial because otherwise his decisions are going to be based on what benefits him. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take his ass, lock him in an ivory tower, see to his every need so that he has no wants and no desires, because as soon as he has wants and desires, he's going to have an opinion. He can't have opinions. He needs to be completely neutral. So his job is to, we have, by the way, made up this long list of rules that we all agree on. It is his job to keep that list of rules and look down at us and talk to the people in government who sit below him and say, "Okay, you guys in government are supposed to duke it out. In this government, we're now going to call it parliament. You duke it out. And if you have a problem or you're in a stalemate, you call me and I come make the deciding vote."
I don't like that island. I, but I understand where you're getting at.
Yeah.
I just
So, and then over time, monarchy becomes this thing where, and this is, they don't deny this. The royal family is essentially breeding stock. Like you take the strongest, most intelligent, most revered, most honest, most noble person, and you figure those must be genetic traits. Go find somebody else with those traits and tell them to fuck.
hmm.
And then we'll create this. it's like breeding horses. You're just trying to create the best possible one so you can put it in the ivory tower and say, okay, that person is that shining example of the best of us, the best qualities that humanity has to offer. And we put them in that ivory tower so that they can look down at us, see what's going on, and then if they see a problem, their job is to tap government on the shoulder and say, hey, see that? You're supposed to fix that.
I just hope
It,
this never becomes a reality show. I just,
well,
I
that's basically the long and the short of it. Like the British monarchy system is one that went from the king having all the power to eventually the monarch is under control, kept under glass. It's basically an insurance system. If things go really badly, we have that fallback. We have that deciding vote to break up a monopoly or just break up a log jam and get things moving again. And as a result, we have 5 levels of government. That's a lot harder to dismantle than the 3 levels that you guys have.
yeah, and I was gonna say we're we're in trouble here.
Yeah.
But
And
I gotta get us away from politics. We lost
sorry.
7 viewers already. Um,
Oh,
because they're like talk Star Trek. No, I do wanna shift gears slightly, and you're absolutely correct about everything. And you had me thinking about Stargate. I was like, I'm thinking like I kept thinking, oh man, maybe the people on the island will find a Stargate, and like I don't know, just that's why I just that's all I kept thinking. I was like, that would be a good
but the
show.
miners would build one.
That's true. If you get
Yeah, there
enough
you go.
Naquita, you know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
um yeah. Now I do gotta ask. I'll go back to Star Trek. Something I've been asking lately, and I've been really bad about a few times with people is, do you have a Star Trek hot take? Something about Star Trek that if you could, you would change.
The one thing that always really irritates me, and I think this is what leads to a lot of the confusion um, in the end battle scene at Kittimer in Star Trek 6. I don't know, like Nicholas Myers is clearly a very intelligent director, and I like that he does not spoon feed the audience. He just leaves the information there for you to get. Ever since I first saw the movie, I've noticed people just debating like Chang's ship is constantly firing at the Enterprise while it's cloaked. The shields are up, but the ship is still being battered to hell. And people are always asking me, like, well, if the shields are up, why is this happening? And they don't understand it's because, okay, like, think of it like Kevlar. It's not very useful if you're taking a point blank range shot.
Yeah.
So the fact is, and I think just the way it was shot, and to Nick Meyer's credit, how do you film a battle between two ships when one of them is invisible? So it's the idea, like what's actually happening is it's not a continuity glitch in that the shield should be working. It's the fact that Chang is basically getting in and firing at point blank range. He's zipping around like a bee or something, just stinging randomly. But he's proving the effectiveness of this weapon is like, hey, I can get in. Like in boxing, I can get in beyond your reach, inside
It's
within your
interesting.
reach, beat the hell out of you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
See, I never really gave that much thought. That's a really, really good thought.
Yeah, so what he's doing is he's proving the effectiveness of the weapon is that I don't have to penetrate your shields on the first time. I can just sit here and wear you down, which is exactly what he did.
Yeah.
And everybody just takes it as like, no, this is a continuity error. The director didn't know what he was doing. It's like, no, he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, I would never tell Nicholas Meyer he didn't know what he was doing. I was like, that's
No, that'd be yeah.
yeah.
Um, but the one thing that that just I can't wrap my head around is when that one final shot finally does punch through the hull and it goes through the bottom of the saucer and comes out the top. Yet when it goes through the the dining area, it seems to be going horizontally across the stage, like across the set. So like it doesn't work with the layout of the ship. So at that point, I'm thinking like, does Nick Meyer understand how gravity plating works, or does he think like the saucer just works as centripetal force?
I'd like to say
It,
that the torpedo stopped and then turned sideways, and then
okay, magic bullet theory, that works.
magic
Okay,
bullet
yeah,
theory.
yeah,
Exactly.
all right.
It's his own personal JFK. There
Okay,
you
yeah. If
go.
it's good enough for Dallas, it's good enough for us.
Back and to the right. Back
Yeah,
and oh man, that's a good one. I like that. I need to start writing down all the hot takes so I can get a list of them because these are good. If nothing else, this would be a great book. Um,
and and as for hot takes when it comes to new track,
oh, we're gonna go new track now.
all of them. Like I
Really?
really hate how that it's ever since J.J. Abrams got in there, everything moves too much. And like you got all the lens flares and lens flashes and just the audio has been kicked up a notch, and I find the performances are just very flat. Like I don't know what they're teaching actors these days, but it's clear none of them really have any kind of classical training. Because they're just acting for like Star Trek works best when they pull from the theater and they have Shakespearean actors because Star Trek is in many ways Shakespearean theater and Greek. There's a lot of Greek theater in it too,
Yeah.
and those are some of my favorite episodes. But modern Trek is just, and I have ADHD, so trying to watch something that's constantly moving and flashing with heightened background noises, I cannot hear it. I cannot hear what the actors are saying. It's overwhelming to me. It's stimulation overdrive, and I think that's probably one of the things that's driving away a lot of fans from new Trek because I think Trek is one of those things that attracts a lot of people with ADHD because it's finally a world where we're sort of understood and everyone's it's gone beyond toleration, it's acceptance. And we strive we need that. And we can't even watch that on television anymore because it just doesn't work with how our brains are wired.
Do you have a favorite Star Trek series that you like, a comfort series?
That changes. I typically watch the movies a lot, but I find Enterprise is actually one of my favorites. Like just it from I think because I appreciate what they were trying to do, although I think it just happened at the wrong time.
Yeah.
It is, they're doing a callback to the original series now, and that's essentially what Enterprise was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is, again, because of that family connection to the armed services, just the look and the feel of it is very, it harkens back to that very well, I thought. And it just made everything more tangible because it was so much closer to our own timeline. It just makes you kind of feel like, yes, this is possible more than any of the other shows did.
They definitely nailed the White House in season 4. Um,
Did you ever
I
see that movie, Idiocracy?
I'm living it. Yeah.
Like when Trump set up was doing the goddamn UFC fight on was it the North Lawn?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, is this not an exact scene
It
from
is.
Idiocracy? Like,
It is. At some point, Idiocracy has turned into a documentary.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I especially when I saw that the reflecting pool turned green, I thought, son of a bitch, did they put Baja Blast in it? Like, we don't need that, because that's like
yeah,
when what was it? The energy drink. They were feeding the plants with the energy drink, and
yeah, yeah. Because it has what plants crave.
I
No, I'm pretty sure they need water, dude.
I tried to get my wife to watch that movie with me, and she made it through 10 minutes.
Oh
And
God.
she's like, no, I don't want to watch this. And I've always told her, and it comes up in conversations all the time. I was like, I'll say, you see the news? You see that? That's a scene in Idiocracy. Oh, that's a scene in Idiocracy as well. And it's like, I'd like
Yep,
to believe that the old guy is watching TV and he says, hey, let's do that. So
yep, yeah. And just to quickly touch on the monarchy point again, to me, it's like I said, it's proof that part of the reason that system is there is because also we need something to strive for, as I was saying. Like politicians are supposed to do that, especially in the American system. I think the president is sort of expected to maintain those ideals.
Yeah.
Um, and, and that's just it's human nature. We will always need that. And I think the idea of Star Trek is that the people serving in Starfleet to one degree or another are that. They are the ones that sort of set that example of because they're the ones going out into the galaxy and meeting other races. So they, in a way, they are the ambassadors for Earth. So they have
Yeah.
to be that shining example leading the way.
Well, that's a really good way of looking at it. Um, I do want to give you a chance to do self promotion.
Oh,
And is there any place where people can go to find you?
well, I'm on Instagram. I usually just post pictures of my sculpture work up there.
Which
Uh,
I didn't even get a chance to talk about your sculpture work.
oh, well,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
mean, well, no, I that's one thing I seen you do Batman so well. There,
Oh,
like
thank you.
I was going through, and anybody that has the chance, like seriously, I'm gonna put all of your information on screen and down below. You need to go check out Christopher's work. You need to specifically the sculptures. There's so much to see. And um, I am curious when you're making your masks like the Batman and stuff, like you're
Mhm.
making the cowls and stuff. Is this for like a display, or is this for wearable? I'm not quite sure what the end is.
Um, well, right now I'm just the Batman one was honestly just practice. I was just having
Okay.
fun. I do that a lot. Sometimes I just, especially like the winters here, you can't really do sculpture. It's not a real conducive hobby unless you've got a warm place to work
Okay.
or you're outside and the weather's nice. Um, and so a lot of the ones I make out of monster clay, which is the same stuff they used for sculpting the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, actually.
Oh,
Um, it that's and a lot of times that's just I just call them sketches. It's just me having fun to get through the
I
winter.
I can dig
But
that.
I did get into that actually because of Trek as well.
Oh, okay.
Because I was watching it was when DS9 was first premiering. There was some little behind the scenes excerpt thing I'd seen, and that scene where Jadzia and Cisco find the first orb and it's scanning them,
Yeah.
and they're in some region where there's all these rocks or something.
Right.
I got watching this documentary bit and it talked about how these sets were put together, and I was already interested in scenic work. And then they showed this guy carving these things out of foam. I think they were statues or something. And
Okay.
then they had to look aged. So one person came in and carved these things out of it was a type of styrofoam, and then somebody else came in and aged them. And I thought that's really cool that you can make deep sculptures that size over life sized and that detailed within a few days. Because I just always thought of sculpture as stone.
Yeah.
And so I think I just have a very three-dimensional mind. So I was just able to, I like working with my hands. And um, as I progressed, people started telling me, like, if you're trying to get into the film industry with your scenic design stuff, push the sculpture because there's a big need for it right now. And they work in foam usually, so it's quick, it's fast, it's easy to a degree. It's pretty awful stuff to work with because like styrofoam has a real knack for finding its way into every orifice.
Yeah.
Um, but it's ultimately to kind of move in that direction of working in film, and that was again that was a goal that was kind of set by the Star Trek inspiration.
Well, that's awesome. I really like that, and you do really well.
Thank
It's
you.
it's an amazing, like I said, very amazing pieces. Everything that's on your page, and I recommend everybody check it out. Christopher, this has been wonderful. I have appreciated all of your time. This has been a really great hour, and I truly appreciate. you coming on here. I hope everybody goes and checks out your page and shows you some love because you definitely deserve it.
Well,
Um,
thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. I honestly, if you could have me back, I wouldn't mind that. For
oh yeah, yeah.
probably
I've
talk
been
for hours. So
formulating a list of people to have back on for other things. Like I know there's at least 20 other subjects we could talk about, and
yeah, all related and tying in, I'm sure. Um, but just one last thing, you
yes,
mentioned there's like we need like a what was it Christopher Island or something? What did you say it
oh,
was?
Chris Con
Chris Con, yeah. Um, just again, getting back to, hang on.
for the listeners. He's getting up to show us something. And like I said, if you have a chance, be sure to check out Christopher Davidson on Instagram. You don't want to miss out on his stuff. Artist, sculptor, carver. He specializes in concept art, environmental and scenic designer, and yeah, and definitely don't miss out. So go check out his Instagram. So what you got?
Okay, so I'm not sure I mentioned it yet, but Star Trek Six is my favorite of all films,
Okay,
and I think Star Trek always nails it when, like I said, they use classically trained actors.
right.
They make the best villains,
Oh, definitely.
hands down, 100%. So when I had the opportunity, the year I graduated from university was the year Plummer was performing The Tempest in Stratford.
Okay.
And as a graduation present, my parents got me a couple of tickets to go see The Tempest. And while I was there, I picked up his memoirs that he was there, and I did get him to autograph it. But speaking of there being too many Christophers, look how he signed it.
I like that. That way you understood who he was talking to
Yeah,
and who it was
exactly.
from.
And he said to me, well, you know, you're about the sixth one so far, right? So yes, we need the Chris Con. That that has to happen.
Chris Kahn. I'll even show up and host.
Okay,
I'll be a temporary Chris for a day.
okay. And anybody that goes by Topher is not allowed in.
Okay. Topher's not allowed. I get it.
No, no.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, and
Thank you.
I look forward to everything else that's to come.
Great. Me too.